Part 5. Losing Mooney. Tonight's the night. Marauders ride again. I made us a flag.
The three boys gather under the shade of a low-hanging tree and watch the limbs of the whomping willow shift of their own accord. The breeze stirred up by the sentient mammoth creature makes the chill air yet more chill. The boys are purposeful in their actions. They do not allow the night to make them feel as if they are ant-sized shadows scurrying from one hiding place to another. They are themselves even in the warped truths of nighttime. They are independent of the moon. They are lucky. The tallest boy adjusts his glasses, catching moonlight sharply along the glass. He flashes like an unexpected star. A shorter boy watches the aimless, searching motions of the willow branches thrashing against the sky. He is often afraid of the metal smell on the air. The third boy paces near them, counting silently to himself each step. He is impatient, an awkward jangle of energy. The moon is consumed by the momentary clouds, which cast the grounds in shade after shade of darkness. Now, the tallest boy says. The shift in the wind echoes his words over the bending grass. Now, he says a little sharper, the edge in his voice like the edge in the wind, and the two others glance at him and at each other, and the third boy, the restless, dark boy, nods sharply. And then their shadows, dark against deeper dark, twist. They change. Padfoot shakes out, wet, cold shivering down through his fur, like insects. The sharp smell of pack and winter. His ears throbbing with waiting. Coming, soon, coming, run, companions, pack, soon. Eager, the wind eager and the howl itching in his throat eager, and ears pricked for the coming of his packmates. Sirius struggles for a moment, then floats into awareness atop the dog mind, riding the wave of sensation and easy canine joy. Soon, waiting, tremble in the limbs, itching to run, itching to... Fleas! Bugger! Head down to belly to bite deep into thick skin beneath thick fur, thick teeth hunting. Itch on his nose, itch on his haunches, nips and bites and torment down his spine. Legs bend up, lift up, scratching, searching skin, fire. Dog body arcs, lifting, rolling through the cooling dirt. When I'm a famous wizard, I'll rid the world of fleas. Belly bed, howl on the wind, scent on the wind, woof on the wind. Sudden spasm forward onto paws, shunting in great gasps of air. Tongue lolls wet, warm, in cold air to cool, sudden blood hot as summer. No time to leave his stomach vulnerable, tender, open. No place to leave his stomach vulnerable, tender, open. Woof out there, smelling them change, smelling them now through low roots and dirt indecisive. Sirius loves being a dog, smelling everything at once from everywhere all around him. Wormtail chirps rodent reminders, cleans nose, cleans whiskers, feels trembling small near big animals. Little worms and big worms thrum beneath his paws through the earth. Dog thrashing nearby, stag stomping hoof after hoof groundward, jumping with each agitation. Little heart beating, rodent, 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 so fast, so fast. Peter finds himself bigger, though confined within the tiny rat body, listening to himself think, remembering his task. Where are the tree roots waiting, the wood knot, the goal? Whiskers stirred by wind, whiskers stirred by grass, stirred by wind. Whiskers run along familiar groundways. Highways through the grass, roadways, pathways. Bugs curl up, little rat nails skitter back, forth beneath readying hooves. Nip dog tail, careful incises. Dirt from nose, dirt from whiskers. A somewhere owl. Hoo, hoo, hoo. Dark rat eyes bead under moonlight, watching the trees. Remembers beak, talons, blood smell, enemy eyes. Instincts interrupt purpose. Instincts keep him low to the grass. The grass keeps him safe. The stag prances in patience. Instincts skewed. These bigger animals are safety. Peter cannot help that he is small, trembling with the rhythms of his small life. Prongs is large and feels large, moves large, hooves large and the world smaller. Rat dancing at his ankles, he wants to be leaping, kicking slim legs and chasing the soft-nosed deer deep in the woods. Tree leaves swaying with tree branches swaying, night bird skimming from branch to branch. James sits somewhere between his own antlers, watching the world play back and forth in monochrome geometry. Dog beside him jumping energy, body heat, pulsing eagerness. He dips his long neck down and nudges dog belly. Nose to the heat, teeth grinning. James understands Wormtail needs encouraging, and he guides his hooves forward, shaking his head out in a challenge to the night owls unseen but predatory. They have tasks to fulfill, reasons to betray one instinct with another. Through the close tunnel, trapped beneath the earth, closing in on antlers, long walls of dark dirt, where the wolf tears itself from itself, waiting. He doesn't want to remember the change. It drives him into a frenzy of panic, residual ache throughout tight muscles. The pain goads him into wild thrashings. He snaps the already snapped legs of chairs and tears the fabric on the bed in the corner to shreds and pulls down the canopy and gouges curls of wood from the floor. The shack won't stay still, patches of moonlight here and there, here then there, here. He skirts around the window, watching the moonlight splay over the floor. Each slice is a slash, each slash reaching for him. What the moonlight sees, he sees. He doesn't want to remember the change, still ripping through him. Little cloud fingers pass over the moon. Each brushes over him, his fur on end. His eyes move nervous back and forth. Sometimes they stop on the moon just outside the window. Hunger fills him like hunting, like blood spilled, like the sun setting. He doesn't want to remember the change. He pours the glass, whines deep in his throat, launches his great spiny furred body at the door. The locks hold firm, though the hinges scream. He launches himself again and again against the straining frame until his broad shoulders are numb and he doesn't remember the change. Sinews stretching, snapping, shrinking, spreading, muscles in constant miserable motion. The moon working nails of light deep down into his blood, organs pushed and pushing, veins winding, rewinding, blood shunted into rearranged valves and the bones of his jaw cracking into muzzle into great russet snout. He doesn't want to remember the change. Soon, he remembers only the moon. Wormtail skitters. Dry stick skitter stops to check. Up, down, forwards. Check, 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 and waits. Listening for the trembling, the big tree trembling. Peter gets impatient, sometimes, with the rat fear. Maybe because it is too like the human fear, but with 1,000 years physical instinct behind it, instead of only 16. He jerks and scuttles forward, zigzag the dog body and the stag body like a wall behind him, on his whiskers, in his nostrils. Wormtail puts his paw carefully on the secret knot. The movement of the buckling air, the thick air, the air that weighs on his nose, goes sideways and dissipates. When the branches stop aching to move, something stills on Prongs' skin, and he knows. Up above the head, sensing the tree go quiet, sensing it sleep among the branches. He motions, hard sometimes, to force the stag mind into the predatory pack. And the dog comes, eager, waves of readiness flying, paws and great glistening mouth. Down the tunnel heaves Padfoot, heaves the pack, where the smell waits. The wolf is sprawled and panting, tired. He breathes heavy within himself. He's leaned back on his haunches by the door and watching the wood creak, feeling the wood creak, waiting for the catalyst to howling. It comes over him, time to time, the great rocking, rending urge from his belly. Sometimes it is when the moon wavers from view. Sometimes it is when the moon is naked, an eye he challenges for a body he longs to curl around or a creature he aches to devour. The wolf makes heavy chopping sounds, black lips pulled back over uneven teeth. He growls at intervals, whines, gnaws at the tendon beneath fur running into paw, something to sink his teeth around. The sounds of stag, rat, and dog travelling underground comes to him up through the floorboards. The footfalls are uneven, travelling skittish, circling, scratching behind at fleas, the scrape of antlers on the roof of the tunnel. The wolf's ears perk. They twitch. They flick away an invisible fly. His muscles tense, his shoulders rigid, the moonlight dancing over his folded forepaws. He brings himself upward and forward and stands at the doorway, growling until the unwashed scent of dog and the jumping of fleas in between shoulder blades is almost his own, until he becomes the rapid heartbeat and the tiny nailed paws, until there is the heavy weight of antlers and the trump of hooves on rickety steps. The snarl begins deep in his chest, echoing against his lungs, rising to short, deep barks. He hears the locks unhook, slide, slip away, and he knows to throw himself at the door just as the dog turns and the whites of his eyes flash blindly. Padfoot is bigger, but the wolf is always stronger. The routine fight is no stranger. There is canine greed in both of them. Prongs and Wormtail wait, uneasy on the edge. Padfoot bats and lunges, the slide of his gums slick against wet nose, but he is pack. He's not leader. And the wolf has him belly up in moments, growling and huffing hot triumphant scent and threat. Padfoot whines his surrender, flicks back his head, vulnerable throat pulsing. The wolf noses it, huffs out hugely, and pads back on great feet. Golden eyes, the smell of other victories. Prongs paces, one step forward and then a step back, his crown lowered in a wall, wary. Behind him Wormtail chitters, nervous. Prongs tosses his head proudly, tired of mad predator play, tired of the dogged indulgences. Outside whirls the moon and the stretch to run under trees. Eager, Padfoot flips up to stand, barks joyous leaps towards tunnel, but the wolf crosses him, pausing to snarl. Padfoot shrinks back, deferring, and lopes for the cold and the whip of night air. His pack follows. The three large figures move unseen into the forest. There are dark beasts in the forest. A dark beast leads them. The wolf runs, muscles wound tight, pounding over the forest floor. He chases after little animals, diving into bushes, torn at by thorns, whirling on Padfoot when he loses his prey and tearing out little bellies. Out spills hot blood over the dirt to mix with the moss. Cold November leaves, freshly fallen, snap underneath his paws. He feels the blood streaming across his muzzle, dripping at the bared corners of his mouth. His pack is polite, dutiful, giving him freewheeling cruelties and wild lunges, and each swift squirrel, every terrified rabbit. But he is flanked on either side, kept in check. He snaps at Prong's heels and bites at Padfoot's paws, showing his displeasure, but allowing it. Through the interstices of the branches above, the moon illumines a lumbering, luckless badger. The wolf veers to the side, slams a shoulder against Padfoot and pursues, snagged by bushes branching into crooked thorns. He has the creature by the tail when the howl comes, through the trees, arcing into the night, reaching the moon and echoing down through the 1,000 shafts of light. When the pack reaches struggling bleed badger, the wolf long gone, leaving his scent as everywhere as the night. "Bugger and disaster," Peter says frantically for about the 12th time. Pointlessly, he glances behind a tree, as if somehow the immense wolf had turned itself on its side and is hiding behind it. Sirius is whirling back and forth, running his hands through his hair, worrying the nail from his thumb with his teeth. They've done this before. They've gotten Mooney in trouble. They've almost lost Mooney, and it was Sirius' fault before. Even if it isn't his fault now, he feels achingly responsible. His nose feels clean and empty. A stag plunges into the clearing and shakes itself into James, naked and serious. I can't scent him. He's nowhere the forest can touch. This is a fucking disaster. Fuck, Sirius whirls again, smoothing hair violently back from his face. Shitting hell, sod, bugger, fuck, why didn't we put some kind of leash on him? Oh, you mean on the werewolf, James says. Gee, Sirius, I don't know. Why didn't we put a leash on him? You stupid Burke. No. We'll find him. He'll be alright. Can't we track him? Peter wonders. Do you know a spell that could find him? James shakes his head. If I knew one, I'd have done it. There's nothing we can finish in a night. A good tracking spell's got to be tied to something physical. A touchstone. He shoots a glance at Sirius, who is nearly tying himself into knots, pulling at his hair with one hand and pounding at the wall with the other. The chill November air has raised gooseflesh up and down his bare arms. Ah, he says, unhelpfully. Well, thank you, Sirius. I'll keep that in mind. James slams himself against the shack, hands to his forehead. Fuck. What are we going to do? Bugger and disaster, Peter says again. Sirius, you're going to be bald by morning if you keep... Sirius turns, sharp on his heel with a frenzied look in his eyes, still half feral. The night is the pale grey shifting to pre-dawn, even the outskirts of the forest settling into dew-wet humidity. They aren't quite over their animal halves, the natures they relinquished themselves to and were so worryingly pulled from too soon thereafter. Peter swallows hard. Never mind, he mutters. Never mind, we've got to think. I'm trying, James says. He thumps his head lightly against the wall behind him, too preoccupied with saving the day, the night, the terrible, sickening night, to note the goosebumps on his thighs or the scratching green grass stains encircling his ankles. All of Hogsmeade is asleep just down the long sloping hill, quiet and unsuspecting. They could find their clothes and prowl the streets. They could skirt along the edge of the town as animals, hoping to scent the wolf amongst the smells of humans, living, breathing, eating, creating too much waste to process. They could sit where they are and hold their breath until their faces turn blue and count on the luck that's carried them this far. Always just enough. But none of the options are sufficiently brilliant. None of them solve the problem right away, and the problem must always be solved right away. James remembers another panic, the knotted pretzel of his stomach familiar to how it twists and winds now, and the simplicity of the rescue, the straightforward solution. We've lost him, James says. Buggering Merlin, we've lost him. No, Sirius says. The lines of his shoulders, naked and pale, stiffens with defiance. No, there's 2-3 hours of night left before the sun comes up. He checks the sky, scanning the stars, looking for reassurance. He finds nothing but the on and off glitter of a cloudy night, and shakes his head to clear himself of the spell. 3, maybe, he corrects himself. 3 hours. He can't, well, it's only 3, bugger. We haven't lost him. He's out there, probably chasing squirrels, or rabbits, that's what he does, and then he'll get tired, and... Sirius trails off. He's not going to forgive himself if he hurts anyone, James says, quiet and foreboding. But it won't be his fault, Sirius explodes. He slams a fist into the wall of the shack, feels his knuckles impact against bone, and hisses out the pain, adrenaline released in a rush of relief. Well, it's not yours either, James retorts, so you can stop destroying yourself in revenge. You do look an idiot. Look, we knew something like this could happen. It is mine, Sirius roars. He's suddenly furious and scared and helpless and lost, and combination made all the more infuriating in the face of James' apparent relaxation. He smacks his fist again into the wall, so that the whole shack creaks and shudders against the bruise. Ah, he adds, and shakes his fist out, throbbing through his whole arm. Christ. Stop it, James says, totally calm. Fuck you, Sirius hurls at him. Oh, grow up, James says in one of his abrupt and powerful explosions that are all the more effective for their rarity, and Sirius, startled, stops. We don't have time for this. We need to make sure no one gets hurt in the village. That's number one. We take up a patrol. Tail, you're stealth. I want you making sure no one's talking about a wolf in the houses. Padfoot, you take the streets. I'll go round the perimeter. If we haven't found anything, we'll meet back here in 1 hour. No one of us is any good against him, Peter says quietly, carefully, a man on shaky ground. Then don't take him on, James barks and goes to stag. The streets of Hogsmeade are abandoned, the grey of ash. There is nothing left of the weekends, bustling with colour and noise in the lengthening streets and the closed-up shops in the slumbering, eerie quiet. Where people live, the noises are different. The heavy rhythms of sleep breathing echo behind closed doors. A few men are snoring, rumbling and distracting. The big black dog pads silently through the shadows. Unseen, a spectre, a ghostly beast, grim as a grim. Almost everyone is in deep sleep. A young girl pours herself a glass of water in the bathroom. An old man shifts restlessly in his creaking bed. 2 brothers, just in from a night shift, make themselves sandwiches in a chilly kitchen. A baby gurgles in his sleep. Another baby howls away, answers the call with a dreaming whimper. But Hogsmeade is empty of conversation. There are no words to be found anywhere. The rat hopes there are also no cats. The boundaries of a town will keep any forest at bay. Animals understand the dangerous civilization of man and its every manifestation, and give the houses wide berth, even in the dead of night. Only a few lamps are still lit, flickering as unreachable as stars from the centre of Hogsmeade. The stag disturbs only the leaves as he circles once, twice, 3 times on quiet patrol of the village, letting the gravity of the night cool the anger of the boy within. Nothing, Peter says. Nothing, Sirius echoes. Nothing, James finishes. Sirius is too tired to pace. His eyes scan the edge of the forest nervously, lips smudged with the dirt from beneath his bitten-down fingernails. James is still all energy, calm but steadying, and behind his half-unfocused eyes plans reel and pitch, forming, unforming, combining, recombining. Peter sits in a damp ball against hollow tree, swatting at the occasional persistent mosquito. We've missed something, Sirius says. He's not in the forest, he's not in Hogsmeade. Where the hell else could he be? We haven't covered everything, we only think we have. Hogwarts, James says. What? Peter watches the excitement lace his friend's posture, standing on wobbly feet. He's got to have doubled back on us, James explains. Look, it's the only possible explanation. All this time, we've been on this side of the forest, looking because we know he's not in the forest. But he's got to have gone back the opposite way. He's got to be on Hogwarts grounds. Oh God, Sirius says. Brilliant. But what if he's hurt someone there? Peter asks. What if someone's seen him? Oh God, Sirius says again. I think we should go, James says decisively, but Sirius is already loping down to 4 legs, out like a shot across the long grass. He's not sure whom he's angriest at, now, the force of useless rage spurring his legs beneath him. If it's Remus, for listening to a howl that isn't from their pack, or if it's Peter, for not being big enough to help, or if it's James, for failing to do what he always does, which is solve the problem before any of them have to worry about it. He knows, of course, that he can't blame any of them, really. But it's easier to think of the issue that way than to go on running his head into things, which is what he really feels like doing. And then the dog body takes over and he can feel nothing but the scents on the wind. "Time is it?" Peter gasps, dragging himself upright, his small belly wobbling. Over his head the sky is rose-tinged and brightening to November grey. The wet grass drags around their ankles. "Absurd," James says faintly. "Sunrise, though, and no screaming." "And no smells." Sirius straightens into standing, 4 legs returning to 2. He's just hit his second wind. He can go another hour before the crash hits hardest. "God, no smells. We're in the clear, I hope. No blood out tonight except rabbits and hedgehogs. It's a good thing we let him feed early. Where the hell is he, though? I want my pants." "Pants," Peter says longingly. "I dream of pants." There is nothing left to do but wait, as they've been waiting all night. They look to one another, uncertain. When Sirius's head snaps up, pointing, still as a dog, he puts a hand on James's sweat-thick shoulder. "Prongs." "Ah," says James, as over the horizon a small figure wobbles, pale and shaky against the weak light. The strength of Remus J. Lupin is an incalculable thing. There were times in the past when Sirius wondered at his silences, when James thought he might just be too quiet and too reserved a boy, when Peter could never understand his place with 2 of the rowdiest, wildest boys Gryffindor had to offer. There were times when it seemed he was made up of books and dust in the library and little fraying sweaters and clothes he didn't quite fit into, an uneven posture and the incline of his head as he worried at his right thumbnail. After they learned his secret, they began to translate these oddities into what they really meant in Remus language, and discovered how strong his hands were, to know just how much to give, and just when to stop. The sky is the faint, pale, speckled colour of a robin's egg. Sirius starts forward and James catches him around the wrist. "The moon," James says. It's still there, but fading fast, devoured now by pre-dawn light. Sirius shakes free. "We've been careless enough tonight," James insists. "He needs help," Sirius says. "Do you see? He needs us to help him." "It won't help him to startle him," James whispers. "Keep quiet. Keep still. Wait until the moon's gone." Sirius' eyes turn from the sky to Remus to the sky to Remus between the two so fast his head begins to ache. Never has he wanted the sun to rise so much in his life. Never has it risen so slowly. Remus trips and stumbles his way closer, shadowy but somehow upright, shoulders slumped and, backlit, Sirius can only smell blood on him. "Sod off, James," Sirius says, wrenching himself free and moving too fast to be stopped. "Fuck, Sirius, get back here!" James yelps from behind him, but Sirius can't help it. The strength of Remus Lupin is an incalculable thing, but the frailty of him is more immediate and more frightening, and Sirius is half dog and half boy, and all terrified. "Moony!" Remus snarls, hitches back every line of his body trembling. Closer now, and below the grey light, Sirius can see the welts and scratches all over him. His arms and his long bare chest skin split, and his eyes wild and full of moonlight. The smell of hurt fills his lungs like smoke. "Remus," Sirius says, very quietly, absolutely still, 2 feet away. If he wasn't afraid even the slightest movement could ruin everything, he would lift his hand, palm up in supplication. Remus' head is lowered, the red scars gleaming under the fresh blood. His nostrils are flared. "Hey, Remus." Remus' upper lip raises, bearing teeth that are strangely white against his dirt-streaked face. "It's me," Sirius says, forcing down his wildly careening heart. The pulse of blood in his throat is strong as the moon. "I'm so glad you're all right. Are you all right?" Hackles up, Remus stalks a little, backwards and then back, his eyes never leaving Sirius's. Boy he is now, but his body is all woof, Coiled, wounded, but still dangerous. Maybe even more dangerous. And Sirius doesn't dare move as his head raises and the first edge of gold hits over the trees. Remus goes very still and even whiter, shakes for a paper-thin movement, and collapses forward, ungraceful, so hard and so quickly that Sirius almost doesn't catch him. "Sirius," Remus says, his voice cracked and brittle. "Sirius, you don't have any trousers on." Sirius' laughter is wild and unhinged. "Moony," he says, "none of us have any trousers." "Can't even keep your clothes on without me," Remus whispers, and promptly passes out. "Orgy?" the fat lady says when they reach the tower door, surveying them with a frank appraisal, and then, quickly, password? "Mallow sweet," Peter says wearily. He's hardly in the mood to take any lip from a painting. None of them are. "Don't ask," James adds. His arm is looped under Remus, and Sirius on his other side, keeping him from wobbling over. Remus is heavier than they are used to, taller too, and not helping. "Who's asking?" the portrait says rather lecherously, but swings open nonetheless. The boys survey the hole. The 3-foot rise to the floor has never seemed such a difficult height to scale as it does now. "Hup," Sirius says. 1, 2, just lift him over. We'll be fine." "Be careful," Remus hisses. "And don't bang off anything important," James says with a broad wink. "I wouldn't call that important," Peter says disparagingly, "given that our Mooney lives the wild life of a eunuch anyway." "Hey now," Remus protests. "I'm too weak to hit you. That's unfair." "Don't hate me because I'm so important," Peter says and cackles. "Everyone here is very important," James says soothingly. "One of the many wonderful things about the Marauders is that we're all hugely important. Except Sirius," Peter says, almost reflexively. "That's not what your mother said last night," Sirius replies and nods to James. They lift Remus up swiftly and deposit him with little ceremony on the other side of the door, and then clamber through themselves. The door creaks shut. Safe at last in the common room, they pause a moment to take stock of each other's mad hair, wild eyes, and general pantlessness. "I'm very cold," the muffled Remus voice states, from the heap of Remus on the floor. "Can someone get me some clothes? Would be nice." "I'll go," Sirius says. He feels like a puppy, eager to please but hesitant to leave. James makes a shooing motion with his hands, explaining wordlessly that he and Peter are perfectly capable of keeping watch now that Remus isn't going anywhere without at least 2 people holding him upright. Sirius watches Remus a moment more, prone and bundled into himself around his stomach on the floor. They have to get him to Madame Pomfrey's, but they need clothes first. His task is a most important one. He bounds up the stairs to the boys' dormitory, taking the steps 2 at a time. A few of the boys are shifting in their beds with the sunlight, snores hitching close to waking. Sirius tiptoes to Remus's bed, at the far corner, next to one of the 3 windows. Remus' writing things, quill, inkwell, clean parchment paper, are arranged neatly on the bedside table. Something is scrawled on one of the pages in handwriting that trails shakily off into a distinct lack of punctuation. He was writing here, earlier. Sirius pauses to peer at the words, which form uneven lines. It isn't prose. He leans closer, a few of the spidery words, blotched with ink, almost unreadable. If anything, Sirius can read Remus' agitation in the verse more sensible than English. "Moony," Sirius whispers, noting the small open book nearby. "Copying poetry. Madman." He moves away from Remus' desk and crawls beneath Remus' bed, hoping no one catches him now with his arse up for the world to see. Not that anyone would be the worse off for seeing it. Remus' soled trunk is heavy and locked twice. Sirius uses Remus' own one to unlock it, unable to start the search for keys now. Socks, underwear, trousers, sweaters, all tidily folded, all threadbare in the knees or the toes or the elbows. Nothing looks warm enough. Neat enough, certainly. Warm enough? Certainly not. Sirius pours deeper into the trunk. It smells inside of old wool and older wood and leather bindings worn down with age. Sirius digs through 2 layers of stripes and argyle, leaving as much havoc as possible within the confines of the modest chest before his fingers graze something they recognise. This is his favourite jumper of Mooney's, and he knows it because he's stolen it about 12 times. He's not the sort to wear a green jumper in public. He hasn't got the serenity for it. All reds and blues. But cold nights it's a good thing to have on, and the elbows aren't patched. He grabs it and a pair of shorts with his other hand while he's at it, and stacks up to pull the sweater out. The sleeve snags. Sirius curses silently. All people too careless to keep the insides of their trunks smooth. He happens to know that Remus loves this jumper. He happens to know that Remus actually takes care of it, and if there's now a hole in it, other than the small one near the wrist, which is perfect for wriggling your thumb through, Sirius is going to be angry. He reaches in, cautiously, to slip the fabric free, and his thumb grazes the little splintered-out place where it's caught. There is a small wooden snick, and a drawer slides neatly out from the side of the chest. Sirius' breath hisses between his teeth. He's always known Remus keeps small secrets tucked away, even though Sirius and James and Peter know the really big, really important one. There's an air of privacy to their Mooney, intriguing and hurtful at once. Sirius would barge into every last locked compartment of Remus' life if he knew that was the way to go about it. But he can't. Instead, patience is the key, or the keys. An infuriating patience is necessary to understand each, and it's slow working. Still, he tells himself, it doesn't count if he didn't mean to open the secret panel in the thick wood. He runs his fingers over the warped surface and wrestles the sweater sleeve free, and manages to pull the drawer out fully in the process. A little cloud of dust rises. Remus must not have opened it for a while now, but there's something in there, hiding, still trying to pretend it can't be seen. Sirius sneaks his hand deep inside and runs his fingers over smooth leather, imprinted leathering. It's a book, but not just any book. A shaft of sunlight catches the lettering, gold, which states, simply, Journal. Bugger, Sirius says. James and Peter must be wondering if a monster under Remus' bed has eaten him with all the time he's taking. But he'll never have a chance like this one again. Remus guards his things with the protective might of countless years of privacy. It's a force to be reckoned with, and Remus would clobber him on if he ever caught Sirius sneaking a very private journal out of a very hidden compartment in the depths of his very locked drawer. It isn't his fault, Sirius reminds himself again. It opened by accident. It must have been fate, or one of those stupid karmic things they're always reading about in divination. Without thinking, Sirius snatches the old, worn journal out of secret compartment and pushes it shut, then piles all Remus's socks and underwear and what have yous haphazardly over it. Sweater held tight to his dirt-streaked chest, he stops by his bed, locks the journal behind his collection of dung bombs and bitey things in the desk drawer beside it, and stumbles down the stairs, his fingers itching with the dilemma. To read or not to read? Now that is the question.
From Sirius Black to Remus Lupin, discreetly during History of Magic. How's the wounds, then?
From Remus Lupin to Sirius Black, verging on the side of paranoia. Holding up bravely. I should be given a medal.
From Sirius Black to Remus Lupin, very non-discreet, whereupon Remus Lupin's face goes somewhat blotchy. So you should, or a sandwich. You look like a corpse.
From Remus Lupin to Sirius Black, making up for Sirius's lack of discretion in spades. I am not a corpse. Corpses don't eat sandwiches.
From Sirius Black to Remus Lupin, along with a patented zombie face. Maybe you would. You might be a sandwich zombie. From Sirius Black to Remus Lupin, along with hidden contrition. We were really worried, you know, by the by. Don't wander off any more, young man. We'll have to have you on a leash.
From Remus Lupin to Sirius Black, tossed over his shoulder in a moment of daring. Can't help it. Sorry.
From Sirius Black to Remus Lupin, along with a faint flicker of an idea. Well, we should have helped it. I don't see why we can't enchant a way to find each other, if Honoria Sprout can enchant a charm to find her books every bloody day.
From James Potter to Sirius Black and Remus Lupin, followed by a face of very intense reprimand. What are you two talking about? Not on?
From Remus Lupin to James Potter, coupled with a shrug. Putting little enchantment tags on each other, I think. Actually, I can't tell.
From James Potter to Remus Lupin, as James mouths to Sirius, now you're onto something, really. Jolly good idea, if you ask me. Everyone ought to be tagged.
From Remus Lupin to James Potter, considering the logistics. How will we go about keeping track of it all then? It seems smart in theory, but in application it's more difficult, you know.
From James Potter to Remus Lupin, smelling the challenge and accepting it. I know that. It's not impossible, though, not by half.
From Sirius Black to James Potter and Remus Lupin. Meanwhile, Peter reads through the unconcealed collection of notes on Sirius's desk, and Remus turns blotchy again. You'd just need a master key, right? A place to keep track of all the taggings. Like a map.
From Remus Lupin to all, still considering the logistics. A really big map.
From Sirius Black to all, flicking bits of unused notepaper at Peter's nose. Enormous! That'd be a trick and a half, wouldn't it?
From Peter Pettigrew to all, nearly choking on a wad of notepaper. Well, it could fold up, like.
From Sirius Black to all, followed by impressed thumping on Peter's back to clear his nasal passages of parchment. Brilliant! Good man, Peter. Cheers!
From James Potter to all, merely pointing out the truth. Are you mad, Black? You sound mad.
From Sirius Black to all, there's no turning back now. We should do it.
From Remus Lupin to all, reminding everyone to please consider the logistics. There has to be some precedent to work off of.
From Sirius Black to all, an exercise in supreme subtlety. Why? There's no precedent for 14-year-old you-know-whats, but we did that, didn't we?
From Peter Pettigrew to all, an exercise in daring humor, resulting in more notepaper flicked at his nose. Look, it's obvious he wants to look things up, so let him look things up. It makes him happy.
From James Potter to all, staunchly refusing the logistics for the time being, as it interrupts the brainstorming process. And he's so good at it, too.
From Remus Lupin to all, but considering the logistics will be helpful. Well, I was only saying it because it will be helpful.
From James Potter to Remus Lupin, an understanding that Remus Lupin will spend the next few months in the library, making sweet love to the logistics. Righto, mate. Wouldn't want to keep you from being helpful.
From Sirius Black to all, pay attention to me. Are we doing it? Can we do it? Really? Please?
From Peter Pettigrew to all, well, if James says we can. Of course we are, aren't we?
From James Potter to all, at last, considering the logistics. I'm in if Mooney's in. He's the only one of you with any sense.
From Remus Lupin to all, acquiescing for the sake of the logistics. Thank you, James. All right, I'm in, but only because Padfoot is about to have an aneurysm.
From Sirius Black to all, followed by some fist-thumping high in the air. Hooray! Sorry, Professor? Notes? I don't... No, I was just lending James some blank parchment. Yes, Professor. Next time it won't have notes on it, Professor.
Sirius Black stares at the journal. The journal stares back at him. His fingers twitch on his thighs. How long, he wonders, can one boy and one journal engage in a staring match? He checks his watch. 1 hour and counting. He fidgets. Hours pass slowly. He runs his fingers along the binding and smooths the dust off the cover. He sneezes. It isn't right to go looking at other people's private thoughts, but then again it feels as if these private thoughts came looking for him. Besides, he argues, they're Mooney's private thoughts. Mooney's old private thoughts. A boy over 11 years keeping a journal. Will Remus ever learn what it means to be a normal male presence? Or will he go on calling diaries memoirs or autobiographies in the making or any number of pleasant-sounding but fundamentally flimsy excuses? Sirius Black stares at the journal. The journal stares back at him. His fingers twitch on his thighs.
Entry dated September 14th, 1970. I have made friends. They seem an alright sort, you know, really amazing and funny and brave, if not a little bit crazy even. The names are James Potter, Peter Pettigrew, and Sirius Black, and I have no idea why they like me or even said hello to me on the train. Hogwarts is incredible. I'm in Gryffindor House with my 3 new friends, and there's this one great big dormitory for all the boys, and one for the girls separately, which I have not seen and as such cannot commentary on. Even the food here is incredible. There are so many people I can hardly breathe for fear of bothering somebody. Sirius Black has punched 3 people today alone and doesn't seem to like my nose very much at all. Now that I look at it again, it is an admittedly unfortunate nose. I do not believe Mr. Black is all that happy to be in Gryffindor with Mr. Potter, Mr. Pettigrew, and myself. Something to do with his family, I think. But for a first day, I can't believe everything that has happened to me. Wow. Remus J. Lupin. Entry dated September 15th, 1970. I am utterly doomed at potions. There is no one in the world so utterly doomed at potions. Entry dated September 17th, 1970. Well, it seems that the cauldron, since I only half melted it, is salvageable. That is a relief. I feel awfully bad for the boy partner with me, Severus Snape, a first-year Slytherin who, according to Sirius, also has an unfortunate nose, because I think he's really quite talented but doomed if I keep melting the cauldrons on him. He doesn't look all that pleased, and I don't blame him. I'd murder me. At least, I'd want to murder me. Things are so busy and it's time for lunch. Entry dated September 20th, 1970. Cauldrons burned? 3. Remus Lupin? Hopeless. I think Sirius believes me to be not quite right in the head. I'm starting to wonder if I'm not a little bit less daft than I used to think. I've been assigned tutoring in potions, and I've not even been here a month. Doomed! Luckily, there are other classes, in which I am at least decent, though not half so brilliant as James and Sirius are. They're so used to everything. I'll never be half so confident in defence as they are, or in any of the other classes, of which there are many, and oh how I love them all. I haven't even written Mum or Dad once yet. Time doesn't seem to pass the same way here. Remus J. Lupin. Entry dated October 1st, 1970. Today Sirius said there might be some hope for me after all. I love it here. Entry dated October 8th, 1970. Alright. The way I understand it is this. In life, in a boy's life, you must have known variables. You must have a group of brave and loyal companions who will stick to you no matter the right and wrong, always the thick and thin. You must have sworn enemies with whom you cannot exchange any pleasantries of any sort under any circumstances. You must have secret handshakes to detect impostors and intruders. You must never, ever question these finite rules. It just seems a bit unfortunate, really, because I thought Severus was a very bright sort, but for some reason Sirius doesn't like him at all. Well, that's that then. Remus J. Lupin. Entry dated October 31st, 1970. Today is Halloween, and we've been working on this prank for weeks, and it's just brilliant. Well, that's what Sirius keeps saying, over and over, since last Friday. While I don't quite see the necessity for pranks, I realise I am abnormal, and therefore my perceptions are skewed. So I'd better take Sirius and James and Peter's word for it. What else of note? We all have costumes, and they match. We're the Musketeers. It was my idea, and they liked it. Sirius has come up with a nickname for Severus, which he uses all the time. I don't like thinking it's funny, but the others do. My abnormal brain should stop chiming in uncalled for. It's snivelous. It's really caught on. If he and James weren't so very clever, I should think Sirius would find something unpleasant in his tea in the morning. Oh blazes, I'm late. There's a feast and then the prank. My first prank. I hope I'm not hopeless. Entry dated November 1st, 1970. Wow. I'm not much for pranks, but I love secret passageways. Entry dated November 13th, 1970. Cauldrons burned, 10. People punched by Sirius, 11. Times Severus Snape punched by Sirius, 7. Pranks effected successfully, 3. Pranks effected unsuccessfully, 1. Wrote a letter to Mum and Dad at last. I don't think any of it made any sense, but I can't describe this. Entry dated November 25th, 1970. Sirius has detention. I have an idea. I wonder if James will like it. Added later. James liked it. Entry dated December 1st, 1970. Yesterday it snowed. Hogwarts is the most beautiful place in the world when it snows. White all over everything, and everyone building snowman, and no one concentrating in class, not even the professors, not even McGonagall. And all everyone wants to do is play in the snow all the time. Yesterday we made a fort, and tomorrow we're going to make an even bigger one, so when the Slytherin attack comes, and Sirius says it will come, we'll be ready for it. It doesn't feel like a snowball fight, but rather a snowball war. It is a necessity of utmost honour that we win. No one here knows. They don't know and they don't suspect. And the other day Sirius said we were like musketeers, all 4 of us, one for all and all for one. Dad wrote me wondering if maybe they should know one day. But they can't. They won't. Sometimes I think they like me. No one here knows. I hope I get a new coat for Christmas. Sirius didn't mean to tear this one, and this one's old and ripping anyway.